Hey, how many sets and reps per week should you do to build muscle and strength, also known as hypertrophy? Well, some guys say high volume with tons of sets and reps is the way to go. Others swear by fewer, heavier sets. The truth is, it really all depends on your goals, your lifestyle, joint pain, your ability to stay consistent, all of those things. So, what you really want to ask yourself is how much time do you realistically have each week to spend on your workouts? Are you lifting consistently or just getting back into it? Are you looking to build muscle size, increase strength, or a bit of both? And do you have any joint pain going on that you're battling when you're working out? Well, my name is Lance. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. Glad to have you. Since 2005, I have helped hundreds upon hundreds of high-performing entrepreneurs, creators, and online professionals reset their metabolism, drop fat, build strength, and get back their edge. The good news is I do this without extreme diets or any gym bro tactics. The biggest mistake that I see is that guys are guessing their reps, their sets, how often they should work out without much of a clear plan based on either what they've always done, what they've been told, and they don't really understand or know why they're doing what they're doing, and they may not be seeing the results that they want to see. So if that's you, you're in the right place, because today what we're going to do is be breaking down the optimal number of sets and reps per week, how to split them up to maximize muscle growth and strength, and why choosing the right volume along with intensity is going to make all the freaking difference. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here as usual. There we go. All right. So, the question is how many sets and reps per week are best for strength and muscle growth? Now, again, we're specifically talking about strength and hypertrophy for men over 35. All right. So, with that said, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the very first thing, which is you've got to determine your set and your rep range. All right. So, very first thing is we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into, there we go. We're going to dive in first and foremost. We're going to talk about reps. We'll kind of get into sets thereafter. So, who's this for? Well, men over 35 wanting muscle size, strength, and balanced fitness. This is not for somebody that is a gym bro or trying to become a bodybuilder. Absolutely not. If you've got 40 to 50 minutes for your workouts, you prefer structured routines, this is for you. If you're more focused on strength and hypertrophy over fat loss. Now, it does not mean that you don't have fat loss that you would like to get. It's just that some guys, if they're 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight and they want to lose the belly and then build muscle, I'm definitely going to recommend that we're going to focus on fat loss before trying to build muscle size. Now, again, does it mean that you can't do it? Not at all. I've got plenty of clients that they specifically did some of the stuff that I'm talking about with you, dialed in their nutrition, and they dropped 60 to 70 pounds of body fat while they were building muscle, okay? The key while you're doing that is making sure that your nutrition is dialed in. We're not going to talk about all that stuff today. We're going to talk about specifically these specific things. Now, again, fat loss can still happen, but it's not the focus compared to strength and size for today, okay? So the very first thing is, what are the ideal rep ranges? Well, repetitions, very first thing, should be controlled on the eccentric, which is the lowering phase. So if you're doing a curl, it's going to be the lowering phase on that curl. The concentric is the pulling phase or the stronger phase, all right? So the very first thing is you want to be very controlled on your eccentric, also known as the negative. And you want to get as deep of a stretch as possible so you're getting full range of motion, fully lengthening those muscles, okay? And then we want to use as much explosiveness, I was going to say explosive techniques, but as much explosiveness as possible on the concentric. Now, in your mind, you might think to yourself, like, you're going to just whip that thing up in the air, but in reality, if you're using heavy enough weight, in your mind, you're going to whip it up into the air, but in reality, the thing's going to go a little bit slower than what you probably anticipated. That's what we want, okay? So for strength focus, here we go. For strength focus, 4 to 6 reps. Now, again, there is like powerlifting style of 3 to 5 reps. I'm not talking about that style. I'm talking about strength in the 4 to 6 rep range. Why do I specify? Because powerlifting primarily is going to be more about moving the weight or the load from point A to point B successfully. Whereas what I teach on this channel is not going to be about how much weight you can move. It's going to be about how much weight you move that leads to muscle growth, strength gains, and fat loss, okay? And in a way that is consistent with your lifestyle. So 4 to 6 reps, heavyweight, 3 to 5 sets per exercise. Now, in the beginning, I'm going to explain the sets here in just a minute. So don't think to yourself, oh, 3 to 5 sets are what I do if I want to build strength. I literally only do 2 to 3 sets when I'm doing 4 to 6 because I'm going number one, slow on the eccentric, and I am also going to full failure. When you're controlling the weight and going to full failure, you don't need high volume. But today we're going to talk about volume versus intensity and all that stuff too. So 4 to 6 reps, again, as a general, not based on everything I'm talking about today, but as a general, 3 to 5 sets is going to be kind of where you would aim for, closer to 3, especially if you're if you're new to this or if you're new to consistency. Now, hypertrophy focus, that's where you're specific to wanting to build muscle size over or along with strength. That's where I want to be. I want to continue to build strength because obviously a stronger muscle typically is going to be a larger muscle, or we could say it the other way, that a larger muscle is typically a stronger muscle. So they do go hand in hand, but they don't have to. I've had trainers that used to work for me that did powerlifting, and they were small guys that had amazing strength. But if you looked at them, you wouldn't say like, whoa, that guy is huge or anything like that. You'd be pretty pleasantly surprised by how much they were able to lift. Now, another example of that is this guy that goes by Anatoly. He's on TikTok, YouTube, whatever. I believe he's either Russian or potentially Romanian. I can't remember, so I don't want to speak ill or speak incorrectly. But he is a smaller frame guy. Now, he's ripped, but he has got massive, massive strength. This is because he is more of a power lifter. In fact, I believe he is a pro. But the point is that just because you have a lot of strength doesn't necessarily mean that you have size. So this is where you want to modify some of this. All right. So in the hypertrophy focus, which is for muscle size, 6 to 12 reps, which is more moderate weight, 3 to 4 sets per exercise is what you're going to aim for. Now, again, same thing. I typically do a blend of strength focus and hypertrophy. So for me, I'm going to aim right around 6 to 8 reps, but to full failure. So I'm going to get some of the strength and hypertrophy both. Of course, I still do sets of like 12 to 15. Guys, I even do this endurance metabolic stress too, because if you do it to full failure with good enough weight, you will actually build muscle size from doing that as well. So I'll talk about it in a few minutes, but anything from 5 to 30 reps using enough intensity, meaning we are going to full failure and we're using progressive overload, you're gonna build muscle. So if it feels better to you to doing higher reps, like Arnold Schwarzenegger style, sets of 15, go for it. Just make sure that you're using some of the things we're going to talk about today so that you're not overtraining or disappointed with your results. So endurance metabolic stress, 12 to 20 reps. It's typically, again, is it lighter weight or is it just that you have to use lighter weight to get that many reps? It's that. 2 to 3 sets though when you're doing higher. Now again, I believe it or not, I have done all the way up to 3 to 4 sets on high, we would just call it high repetitions, okay? So all 3 of these ranges can build muscle, but if you care more about strength with building muscle size, you're going to want to focus on strength and hypertrophy more than endurance and metabolic stress, okay? Now, I'll just leave it at there. Otherwise, you guys already know I start going down teaching rants, and then next thing we've got a 45-minute video. So I'll just keep moving from there. And if you have questions based on that, drop those suckers below, and I'll create some more videos. Obviously, you know that I'm creating them nonstop. All right, so best practice is going to be to mix it up occasionally. Guys, we call this undulating periodization. So all this means is that you're going to focus on maybe a strength block, 4 to 6 reps, and then maybe a hypertrophy block of 8 to 12 reps. Now, again, if you look online, they're going to tell you like you could do this every week, every other week. I'm going to disagree with that wholeheartedly. These are called microcycles, and typically you want a microcycle to last at least 2 weeks. 3 to 4 is ideal. 6, is going to be towards the top end of that. So to summarize that, we're going to aim for anywhere from, now again, 5 to 30 reps is going to build strength and hypertrophy if you're doing it the right way. But for the sake of this video, because we're focusing on just strength as well, 4 to, at this case, we're going to talk about 4 to 20 reps is going to be anywhere where you want to shoot, okay? And with that being said, when you decide what you're going to stick with or what you're going to choose, you want to make sure you stick with those repetitions at least 2 weeks, preferably closer to 4, all right? Let me know in the comments if that's making sense. If not, I'll re-explain that. Okay, so in this, you want to incorporate some lower reps for compound lifts and higher reps for isolation movements. So tricep pushdowns, you might be doing like 12, whereas a bench press, you might be doing around that 4 to 6. Now, again, do I always stick with that? No, I don't. Full disclosure, like a lot of my preference up until recently, and about 10 years ago, I do like doing more of the 10 to 15 rep range with heavy weight where you're just going. I love the pump. I love the strength I get. I love all of it. But recently I'm doing more of that anywhere from 5 to 8 rep range. And I definitely notice that I am gaining more strength from that too. So, and that's what I do a lot with past clients as well. So take that for what you will. Let's see. Why? Okay. So, and again, just as a recap, why do reps matter? Well, reps are going to dictate the intensity and your training effect. So again, low reps are going to be maximal strength and power. Moderate reps, muscle growth and size. High reps are going, which again, that's why I put to 25, endurance and metabolic stress, meaning that you're going to be burning more calories this way. You can still build muscle. But again, the higher rep stuff tends to irritate joints at times. A lot of times in the past, I used to think that lifting heavier was irritating my joints, but in reality, I was going too heavy without warming up, and I was not using my rule of going slower on the eccentric. With that said, I kind of broke some rules, so therefore my joints were hurting. So what I would venture to say is that if you're warming up properly, your nutrition is good, and you're using control of the weight instead of bouncing it, you're not going to have any joint problems anywhere from 4 up to 30 reps. But kind of choose based on what you think makes the most sense. Feel it out, guys. Give yourself 2 weeks at least on a rep range. If you're new, maybe start at that 6 to 12 rep range or 8 to 15, somewhere around there. And just kind of feel it out. What matters most is going to as close to failure as humanly possible with good form. That's what's going to matter most, okay? So that's why I put the note here. Reps from 5 to 30 reps will produce strength and size if performed with progressive overload and close to failure, all right? Match your reps to your primary goal in your training phase. You don't have to stick to one rep range only, but periodizing reps can help build both size and strength, which is going to be where you are moving things around. Maybe you do one for 2 to 4 weeks and then you do another one. You're going to find very quickly what you like and what fits you better. At times, I would swear that anywhere from 10 to 15 was absolutely just killer for me. And then other times, I feel like whenever I'm doing like 12, 10, 8, 6, or even doing like 4 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 8 with good heavy lifting, that can work. It really just depends on where you're coming from and all of that, what you feel like you notice better, okay? Now, obviously, I can go deeper in other videos, but for the sake of the time on that, I'm going to keep moving. Okay, so how many sets per muscle group per week? Okay, well, for hypertrophy, anywhere from 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is going to be okay. Let me move that so we can see. Oh, there we go. So beginners, you do want to start on the lower side, 10 to 12 sets per muscle for the whole week. Now, technically speaking, you literally could actually see muscle response for as little as like 5 to 8 total sets per muscle per week. Only you're going to know that from where you've come from and how much you've been doing. If you want help on some of that and you want like, hey man, this is great, but I really need help with all that, go ahead and in the link below, or in the description box below, you'll see a link to book a health and fitness audit that is specifically for men if you want to book that. And it's totally free, and we will go through and figure out what is missing from your program, what is missing keeping you back from getting the results you want, okay? So if you're advanced anywhere from 15 to 20 sets, make sure that you get plenty of recovery though. All right. So as a recap, 10 to 12 sets for newbies per muscle group per week. Now, again, biceps, do you need that much? Biceps and triceps? No, those are much smaller muscles. But in general, this is going to pretty much be a decent template for you. Okay. So 15 to 20 sets for advanced. Now for strength, we're going to do it a little bit differently, okay? 4 to 10 sets per muscle group per week. You're going to be lifting heavier. You don't need as much volume when you're lifting like this, okay? So you want to focus on heavier, lower rep sets, which again are going to be between that 4 to 8 reps. And you want to prioritize compound lift. It does not mean that you don't do isolation moves unless you don't care about like your arm size or shoulder size, okay? So a lot of people ask me that, hey, shouldn't I just stick with like the big three, the big five, whatever those might be, squat, deadlift, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, those are going to be like your prime movers that are going to put on the most mass on you. But again, like I've done that where just like a power lifter, where I basically foregone, or how do I say that? Where I decided to forego, working on some of what they would call ancillary, which is, or secondary, working on biceps and triceps. And what's going to happen, guys, is if you do care about wanting your strength to go up on bench presses and all of that, it's going to help you to strengthen your triceps and to focus on those and to isolate them a little bit. Now, you can do that through close grip bench press, dips, what have you. Those are compound movements, but you can still get a lot out of it by doing overhead extensions, skull crushers, things that I don't care for are going to be things like dumbbell kickbacks, because you're not really put in a prime position to do that. You're actually elevating your shoulders are going to be doing some of the work, and your lats just keeping everything up there while you're doing those. There's just more efficient movements, but isolation is just fine. Okay. Okay. So compound movement, squat, deadlift, bench, pull up, those are going to be your compounds. Those are going to be the ones that are going to put the most mass on you. Okay. Now, important note is that beginners can make progress with far, far fewer sets. Just because you're like, oh, well, Lance, he does 20 sets a week. Yep. But I've been working out for 24 years. I'm an old guy. So with that being said, and again, I started my fitness career in 2005. We're on 20 years this year. So if you don't have that kind of time that you put into it, you don't need to, first of all, you don't need to waste the time. Second of all, your body may not be conditioned yet to do that. Start on the lower end of things and work up only when you feel like progress has stalled. A lot of times you are going to notice progress just simply by doing 10 to 12 sets a week per muscle. It's more than fine. That's why when I first start training or coaching somebody, I might start them off with just 2 sets per muscle group, or 2 sets per exercise on their workouts. Okay. So and maybe if it's biceps, only 2 movements and 2 sets per each. So that means 4 total sets for biceps for that total workout. That's it. Or for that week even. All right. So it just depends on where you're at and where you're coming from. So experienced lifters, you are going to need more volume or more intensity to continue your progress. All right. Now here's the good stuff. This is what we're going to go into now. How do we do split sets across the week? All right. Well, if you're doing 2 days a week, now again, be sure to go back and check my video talking about how to do your splits per week. This here is not specific to that. This one's going to be about sets and reps once you figured out how many splits you're doing, whether 2, 3, 4, whatever days a week you're doing, okay? So on this, 2 days a week, you can do full body each day, or you could do, which is going to be 5 to 6 sets per muscle per session. I'm not going to recommend doing like upper lower, and I definitely don't recommend doing body part splits if you're only doing 2 days a week, all right? For 3 days a week, you could do push-pull legs, or you can do full body A1, B1, C1, or you can do push-pull full body. Either of those will work, same thing, 3 to 5 sets per muscle per session, okay? Because you're working out multiple times a week. So if you're hitting like legs on Monday, legs again on Wednesday, legs again on Friday, because it's full body, you only need 3 to 5 sets per muscle per session on that, because it's basically, 9 to 15 total sets for the week, which is right in there with where we need to be starting if you're kind of new or moderate, okay? 4 days a week. This one here, if you're doing 4 days a week, you can do upper lower split, which is, again, you'll see on my video from the other day, upper lower, or lower upper, either way, 2 lowers, 2 uppers. Or the other way to do it is to do the body part split. Either one of those, you're going to aim for about 3 to 6 sets per muscle per session, okay? So my favorite on there, like if somebody has limited amount of time, they want maximum fat loss and a lot of muscle, I'm going to recommend that you do upper, lower, rather than body part splits if you're only doing 4 a week. Now, does it work? Yes, I've done 4 a week like that, doing body part splits, and I still made gains. But is it as good? Not necessarily, because what you have to keep in mind is when you're doing upper, lower, each muscle group is getting hit twice. When you're breaking these splits up, you got to really, really be cautious or really intentional in order to get muscles more than once a week. And from my experience and everything that I've read and gone through in my education, hitting muscles more than one time a week does yield significantly greater results as long as you're not overtraining. Okay, and then 5 to 6 days a week. So again, we're going to talk about 5. 6 days is excessive, but you can do it. That's where you're going to do a body part split if you're doing 5 days or more, okay? When you're doing this, anywhere from 3 to 10 sets per muscle per session, depending on where you go. Now, for me, if I am doing if I'm having a client or myself do a 5-day split, I am actually going to get closer to about 10 sets per muscle, sometimes even 11 if it's a bigger muscle group, if I'm only working out each muscle group one time a day. Why do I do that? Well, because as you see here, we need closer to 20 sets if we are more advanced, if we've done this for a while. So if I'm only training 1 day a week per muscle group and that means that I'm basically getting half of the volume as what somebody else might get if they were doing it differently. Now, one thing that we're not talking about yet is intensity. There are a lot of people who do what we would call junk volume. They're lifting, they're getting a good pump, but they are not pushing to failure, number one. Number two, they're not using progressive overload. They're just winging it. They're kind of lifting like hippies, if you would. That's what we used to kind of call it, me and another trainer, just kind of doing hippie workouts where you just kind of just fly by the seat of your pants. Now, today I'm doing this. Tomorrow I might do that. Maybe this. If that's you and you're not getting results, I would start there to just know that you're probably not consistent. You need more structure. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want me to cover on that. Pro tip, avoid doing more than 21 to 25 sets per workout. I could just say more than 20, but there are some circumstances where it makes sense. But, 21 to 25 sets per workout or even per week is going to be, per muscle group, is going to be pretty high. You're going to probably lack some recovery. So I would say, in general, try and keep it under 20 total sets per week. And same thing, under 20 sets per workout. All right. Now, obviously, all those 20 sets in a workout are not going to be the same muscle group. That's why I specify both week and per workout. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. I know I'm moving pretty quickly. Okay, so progressive overload, and we're going to talk about volume and intensity. So why does it matter? Well, number one is to build muscle, you actually do need to gradually increase either your volume or your training stimulus, which is going to be either sets, your repetitions, the load that you're using, or the weight, or, and this is some people consider this controversial, I would argue this to my death, if you are, if you are lifting, how do I say this? I want to make sure that I say this the best way. If you are using adequate weight and you slow down your time under tension, your tempo. Now, again, there's a few, I won't call them out. There's a few that they literally make it to the ridiculous, where it's like they're going to show doing super slow repetitions and talk about how this has nothing to do, this won't lead to gains, and it doesn't do anything. Yes, if you're using too light of weight and you're going insanely slow, I totally agree. However, there are so many freaking people that I have seen in the gym, pro power lifter, like all kinds of people, guys. I can throw all kinds of people will come up and go, I noticed that you're doing this. Why are you doing that? And then I would have them switch for 2 to 4 weeks of something. And even like some guys, again, I had a trainer that worked for me, and I started getting him to do a few of these things that I'm talking about, such as slowing down your tempo, controlling the resistance. And what ends up happening? They end up looking significantly better. Their strength goes up because they're controlling the weight instead of using momentum. And they also feel like their muscle size gets denser too. Not to mention it helps other lifts. So am I telling you to put all your focus on time under tension? Absolutely freaking not. But what I am saying is time under tension is a variable that if you're going very fast in your bar speed on both the eccentric and concentric, there's a good possibility that you're leaving some muscle development on the table because you're not controlling the weight in the same regard. I've seen it a million times. I've seen pro people, I'm not going to say which ones, but pros bouncing off their chest and doing this, like absolutely no control in the eccentric. And they're going to tell me that I'm lifting wrong or I'm putting too much focus on time under tension. Yeah, well, I'm going to disagree. So regardless, what I'm going to say is time under tension does matter, but in context. Time under tension by itself without progressive overload, without going to 1 or 0 to 3 reps in reserve, without going to full failure, it's not going to make a difference. But if you are doing those things, for example, and you're like, hey, Lance, I'm trying to bump up my weight each week and I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. I don't want to do an extra set because, gosh, I don't have the time or whatever. And I just don't know what to do. Well, very first thing I'm going to tell you is if all things are equal, go ahead and slow down your bar speed on the eccentric. See if that starts playing a role. When you start controlling, like for example, I have a video on going negative to get better on your pull-ups. The reason this works is because you're using the eccentric phase more so. And again, like if you're putting that focus with good enough weight, your body's going to respond well. Okay. So anyway, I'll just digress. Otherwise I turn into the whole freaking rant. So, okay. So how do we implement this? Let's go. That should be good there. So number one, and how do we implement what I mean is overload and volume. How do we do this? Well, number one is you can increase sets. And this is not in any particular order because number one, I would say increase reps before sets. So you can add 1 to 2 sets per muscle group every few weeks. That's a great way to increase your volume because of your total volume, which I've got another video I'll do on that, all on volume. Again, it'll probably get some hate. I don't care because it has worked for me. I want to share what has worked for me, especially if there's science to back it up. It doesn't matter, who from which company and blah. I mean, I could list these people. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, man, I'm bad about going on tangents on lives. Anyway, we can increase 1 to 2 sets per muscle group every few weeks. That's one way of increasing your volume, which will yield to increased strength or increase muscle size. Another way is to increase weight, which is going to be adding 2.5 to 5 pounds to your compound lifts, maybe a little bit less on your isolation lifts, but still, you should be trying to increase your weight every week or every 2 weeks. If you're not doing that, or if you cannot, you can increase a set or you can increase reps, okay? So the next one, increase reps. Aim for 1 to 2 additional repetitions before you increase weight. So once you're able to increase those repetitions, then you increase weight. But either way, weight and reps are kind of interchangeable where every week you should be doing either another rep or a little bit more weight. Those are the two main ones you should be fighting for. And then from there, if there's another one, you can also decrease reps. Now keep in mind, decreasing rest is going to help with metabolic stress, and which is great for hypertrophy and for fat loss. But if your main concern is strength, do not do that. It'll cost you, okay? And then lastly is going to be where you slow down the bar speed on your eccentric. So again, if you don't want to increase a set, you've tried to increase your weight, you can't, you've increased a rep or two, you're stuck, slow down the bar speed on the eccentric and watch what happens. I guarantee within another week or two, your weight will go back up on that bar, okay? Shorter rest periods, as I said, that's great for hypertrophy and fat loss, not for strength. Okay, now improving exercise form and control, like slowing down the eccentric phase. That is, again, I put it as a technique as opposed to implementation. It works, guys. The main thing that I really want to specify is if you're not using heavy enough weight, going slower on your bar, on your squat, on your leg press, it's not going to do much if you're using significantly lighter weight than what you need. So that's kind of the caveat. Make sure that you're keeping that in mind, okay? And the main thing is like a weight that's controlled is going to be, there we go. A weight that is controlled is going to be one that is lacking momentum. Momentum is an outside force for muscle unless you're using explosiveness on the concentric phase. But letting something come down at you on the eccentric phase means you're not controlling it. It's bouncing the bar. It's not what we're looking for, okay? Now, warning, be sure to track your recovery. If your strength drops or soreness lingers around, you're going to need to reduce your volume or your training as far as like your frequency. It's just going to depend. Make sure also to include deload weeks when you're really focused on strength, which is where we're just going to reduce your sets and your reps. Every 4 to 6 weeks that works. And then I usually am going to recommend like every 12 to 20 weeks, take off a few days of lifting, like where you just give yourself a full week to just recover. Okay. All right. Very last thing here, guys. For a recap, for muscle growth, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is going to be ideal. For strength, 4 to 10 sets per muscle group per week. You want to match reps to your goals. So low reps for strength, moderate reps for hypertrophy, or a blend of those two for both. High reps are going to be for endurance, for fat loss, etching in muscles. Like, again, I still do like, and it's going to get hate, I still like using 12 to 25 reps for just massive pump when you're using progressive overload and going to full failure. I have gotten some amazing results. In fact, the biggest I ever got, I was literally just focusing on doing 3 to 4 sets of 20. A good friend of mine who is a bodybuilder also has, more letters behind his name, CSCS, all these different things. He and I used to do that. We did it for like 6 months and it worked amazingly. Okay. So point is that if you're going to progress or using progressive overload, going to failure, using enough weight, anywhere from 5 to 25 or 30 reps is going to work for you. So you want to figure out what's best for you. If you do want more strength and size, stay on the lower end. If you want more hypertrophy and you don't care about size like where I was for a bit, go closer to that 12 to 15 to 20 rep range. As long as you are pushing it where you're going to full failure and you've got nutrition to back you up, you're going to get results. Now, again, I'm going to say that the caveat is I did definitely notice that I was feeling a little bit fatigued when I was doing that high volume stuff. That's why you've got to either do a week off, a deload week. You've got to keep those things in mind. Make sure you're getting adequate sleep, all that stuff. Here again, just as a recap, progressive overload is key. You've got to increase your sets, your reps, or your weight gradually and regularly. Otherwise, you're not going to see the results that you want, okay? Now, if you're looking for a personalized plan to reach your goals better, faster, or to get out of a plateau, go ahead and book your free health and fitness audit below. You can use the link. And again, it's 100% free. There will be no pitch or anything like that whatsoever. It is going to be my way of helping you to determine what do we need to modify so you can get better results that also fit your lifestyle, okay? So that is everything, guys. Check the links below where you can book that if you'd like to. And then you can also check the YouTube profile. I've got my my book, Food, Love, and Fat Loss. You can get that. And I've got a couple other things that you may want as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. If this helped you, if this made sense, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. That way you don't miss out. I've got so many video series coming up you don't want to miss. And lastly, guys, if you don't mind, hit that share button. If you feel like this is something that would help out some friends or help out some family, hit that share button. It really, really helps out the channel and sends the signal to YouTube that, hey, this channel is looking to grow and people want to hear it. So that's it, guys. Thanks so much. Have an awesome rest of your night, and I will see you guys on